All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today's lesson, we're going to be looking at how the Constitution basically got ratified. If you remember from the last lesson, the Constitution has barely been agreed on, things like that. Now it just needs the final approval, and you're going to see the birth of basically the first political parties coming up and what problems that caused. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's your warm-up picture. Um, the though the only question, there's like a couple parts in there. The first part says, "What are these guys?" You know, George Washington, Ben Franklin. Um, what do they have in their hand? What are they looking at? And the second one, the second half of the question is asking you, do you think George Washington should be worth more based off what they're holding in their hands? Or do you think it doesn't matter? You know, it's just a picture. It's just, you know. So what do you think? Do you think it's like George Washington should be higher instead of on the one? He should be, you know, more up, or do you think it doesn't matter? All right. So pause the video, write your response. Okay, because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So in the Constitution, the debate is still going on in the sense of how powerful do you make the federal government? Well, there was a group that felt the central government should be very strong. And they basically just kept pointing out the Articles of Confederation. Like, look what happened there when the government was weak. Basically, everything went downhill. You know, country couldn't collect taxes, people weren't following laws, states weren't following laws. It's like, why even have a government at all? You know, so this group was known as the Federalists. A lot of these guys were large property owners, merchants, artists, who were in large cities, and farmers who had deals with mainly countries from, you know, across the seas, you know, France, Spain, Portugal, you know, things like that. Um, but then there was another group who felt that the federal government, yeah, it does need to be strong, but it should not be all powerful because that's a slippery slope. If the government's too powerful, then they can basically do whatever they want, and that's going to ruin and trample not only our country but trample people's rights. So this group became known as the Anti-Federalist. Okay, and they basically said they wanted a Bill of Rights. They want rights that citizens have guaranteed in writing. Okay, and that's the key point, in writing. It's one thing to say something, you know, it's another thing to have it in writing. So, like, if for a good example, like I used in class, if someone says, "Hey, I'll pick you up at 6 o'clock," and 6 o'clock comes around, they don't pick you up, and you're like, "Hey, you're supposed to pick me up." No, I said 9. No, you never said 9. You said 6. Oh, well, no, I said 9. If you would have a text message, you'd be like, show them, like, "Hey, look, you said 6." See, that's the importance of things being written down as opposed to just said. All right, so who were these anti-federalists? Okay, now these guys wanted to get their idea out and about, but they tried to not let people know who they were. So they wrote a collection of essays, uh, and they wrote 85 of them in total. That they called it the Federalist Papers. Uh, People like Alexander Hamilton, he wrote like 50 of them. You know, he wrote a majority of them. Now, the essays basically stated that yes, the new Constitution would basically solve all the problems that the Articles of Confederation created. It's just that the government needed to be powerful. Um, and they kind of felt too that the Constitution already limits the power of the government. They're like, look, it says right there the government can't do this, the government can't do that. That's putting limitations on it. It's not all powerful as you guys think. You know, that's basically what they're telling the anti-federalists. You know, it does limit the government. So again, famous people who were behind it: Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, John Jay. Then you got the anti-federalists. Now, a lot of these guys were opposing to slavery. Some weren't, some weren't, but some were. Um, and they, again, were just saying that, if the government's too powerful, then that means the states won't be as powerful, and the federal government can make the states and the citizens do whatever they wanted. And then you basically have like a king situation all over again. Okay, and again, they stressed and kept pointing out there are no Bill of Rights. There's no guaranteed rights to the citizens in the Constitution. So some of the famous people behind this who were anti-federalists were Patrick Henry, Samuel Adams, and John Hancock. Okay, so Massachusetts was a majority anti-federalist, mainly because, again, they were anti-slavery. So the Federalists basically made a deal with them saying, hey, how about this? If you guys ratify the Constitution, you approve it, we promise to add a Bill of Rights. Now, I've had some students in the past, and even in class, I asked if someone said, hey, I promise I'll do this, I promise I'll do that, would you trust them? And a lot of people said no, because I don't know them. Maybe if it was somebody I knew, somebody I trusted, then yeah. And see, that's the thing. Nowadays, people's words aren't worth that much. But back then, that's all you had really was your word. And so when somebody promised something, they had to deliver, or people wouldn't trust them at all. Word spread quick. Hey, this person, you can't trust them. They promise you this and that. Oh, I heard they basically left someone out to dry. They burned this person. They promised them this and that, but they didn't deliver. Word got around. Okay. So the promise led to the adoption of the first 10 amendments, which were known as the Bill of Rights. Okay, but we'll get to that actually in the next lesson. So Maryland, right when Massachusetts ratifies it, Maryland, South Carolina, and New Hampshire ratify the Constitution. So legally, they have the Federalists have the minimum amount of states to basically make this Constitution official. But there's a problem. Two states that haven't ratified the Constitution basically contain 30% of the country's population, and that's New York and Virginia. So the Federalist people are like, okay, we need somebody to go to New York and Virginia to convince them. Two major people said, okay, you go you go that way, I'll go this way. And that's George Washington and Alexander Hamilton. George Washington was from Virginia, so he's like, I'm going to go back to my home state and talk to them. Alexander Hamilton basically adopted New York as his home, so he's like, okay, fine, I'll go there to New York. And their job is to try to convince those states to ratify the Constitution. So at the Virginia Convention, George Washington and James Madison gave a strong argument trying to get this Constitution ratified. Okay, now again, Washington is well liked, well respected, and just people love him. So they're listening to him. He's like, you gotta trust me. This thing is the way to go. This Constitution is a good thing. Some people are like, George, we love you and everything, but that article of Confederation really, hurt our confidence in these documents that you guys come up with and things like that. How do we know that this thing won't fail? So James Madison basically said, look, guys, if you ratify this, we already promised Massachusetts we're going to add a Bill of Rights, but we need you guys to ratify this first, and then we'll add the Bill of Rights. So as word spread, they're talking, negotiating. They get word, Washington and Madison and them get word that it looks like it's favoring ratification. So there's a vote called. 89 say yes, 79 say no, and then there's some that just decided not to vote. So it passed by the very smallest amount possible you can get something to pass. 52%, just barely over the minimum of a simple majority. Okay. So while that's going on in Virginia, in New York, um, Alexander Hamilton and John Jay are trying to delay the vote. Alexander Hamilton is doing the best he can to stop them from voting and say, okay, you know what? Let's talk about this. What don't you like about this Constitution? Let's discuss. Okay, you think that? Okay, okay, I get you. I hear you. Okay, how about you? What do you think? Okay, yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, what about you? And he's just delaying it, stretching it out because he's waiting for word that New Hampshire, especially Virginia, has ratified the Constitution. Well, news comes that, hey, yeah, New Hampshire approved it and Virginia has approved it. So then Hamilton's like, all right, cool. So he and John Jay basically tell New York, look at guys, New Hampshire ratified it, Virginia ratified it. You guys and a couple states are all that's left. So if you don't want to ratify this Constitution, fine. We just won't add you to this country. You're going to be on your own. You'll be your own country. So good luck trying to get, trade, trying to get help from us. Good luck defending yourselves because you're not going to have an army. So there you go. Unless you ratify it and join the United States. So the New York delegates are talking, and they're like, and they make a good point. We can't survive without help, and things like that. We'll have not only America, we'll also have France, and we'll have the natives. Yeah, so let's do it. So they ratified it. Now, the only two states that didn't ratify it at this point was now Rhode Island and North Carolina. The Confederation Congress met with them and basically told them the same thing that Hamilton told New York. Either you're with us or you're going to be your own country. And Rhode Island is the tiniest state we have. So they knew we have to join. There's no way we could survive on our own as our own country. So they joined. And on March 4th, 1789, the first meeting of Congress took place. And basically, these guys were like, okay, well, we need a president. Someone that people like, and trust. And everyone basically is looking at George Washington. He wins by a landslide. I mean, it's like 97% of the votes were for him. It was ridiculous. Here's another thing too about George Washington. He didn't belong to any political party. He's the only president we've ever had who didn't join this group or that group. He was independent. He didn't want to be in any political party. Now here's the thing. The Constitution's ratified. The ink is barely starting to get dry on it. And a lot of Americans are kind of, I don't know about this. I don't know about this Constitution. There's no guarantee that it's going to work. There's a lot of Americans who are just shaky. They're like, what if this is just another Articles of Confederation? What if it's worse than it? What if, it fails? Then what are we going to do? The country's already in bad shape. But again, Washington is like, guys, trust me, this will work. You just got to accept it, follow the rules, pay your taxes, and just believe that this will work. So he had a lot of confidence in the Constitution. And because, again, people liked him and they admired him and they trusted him, that people went along with it and said, okay, George, lead us. Lead us with this new Constitution, with this new form of government, and let's see what happens. And that's where we are today, right? Still have it. All right, so here is your question. So, George Washington, again, was elected mainly because he was well liked and respected. Who is somebody in our country whom you believe is well liked and respected by most Americans? Okay, when I say most Americans, I don't mean like 100%. There's nobody in the world who's truly liked by everybody. Nobody. Okay. Um, but what do you think is like a majority of people in America like? Like 70%, 60% of Americans like this particular athlete, actor, actress, you know, um, who do you think a lot of people know, like, and respect? So think of that person, write their name down. Then answer the second part. Do you believe that person would be a good president? Okay. Now, do not put someone like, I don't know, Kim Kardashian, because not everyone likes her. Some people think, oh, she's pretty and this and that, but um, no, they would not trust her with their car. So put somebody that you actually truly believe, like, what, everyone I know likes this person. They think this person's a good person. You know, a lot of America seems to like this person as well. So again, who's that person, and do you think that they would be a good president? Okay. So again, think of celebrities, actors, actresses, um, authors, musicians, athletes, you know, even personalities, influencers, TikTok and YouTube. Okay, so try to think who is somebody that like everyone likes, or a lot of people like. Okay, so once you answer this question, that's it for this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. All right. So with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe. I'll see you later. Okay.